Welcome back to bonus episode number 1, and we're going into the third video, which is all about things from an employee's perspective. When they get your CV, what goes through their mind and whether they're going to take that CV and, of course, yourself forward for interview. So let's have a look at things from an employee's perspective. So first of all, when an employee puts out a job application, he's normally filling one potential role. So he'll be looking for 2, possibly a maximum of 3 potential candidates to interview. And normally, if there are 2 strong ones, he'll interview those with a third one as a backup. Obviously, if there's more of the same type of role on offer, there'll be a lot more leeway in the CVs and the people that will come in for interview. But normally, if it's just one role, you're probably looking at 2 potential candidates to go forward for interview. So what you need to do really is make sure that you're one of those candidates at least. First of all, first impressions count a great deal, because normally if an employer has got 10 CVs in front of him for one role, what he's going to do is have a look at the first page, give it a quick scan. If he can't read it, or if the formatting is pretty bad, or if he just picks up something that he doesn't like, that CV is probably going to go straight into the bin. So first impressions do count. Make sure your formatting is spot on, and what you've got on the first page is enough to catch the employer's eye. Make him interested and make him put your CV on top of the pile. Now, if you're going through a recruitment agent, obviously they may pick up your CV and they might call you, get a bit more information, and they may ask you to look at your CV, spruce it up a bit, do a little bit more work on it. They may even sort out some of the formatting on their end before they then pass it on to the employer. But if you're going direct to the employer, you've got to make sure that your CV is 100% and good to go. So then, once the employer decides to take your CV to the next stage, where he's narrowed down a list of possible candidates for interview, then that's when they're going to read in a little bit more detail. So they'll look at your first page and try to glean as much information off that page on your experience. Now, obviously for an entry-level role, you may be lacking in a great deal of SQL experience. So that's when an employer will look at your experience versus your potential. So how much effort will be needed to train you up if they take you on for that role? So the key thing here is to make sure that you come across as someone who's highly motivated to start doing your own training, doing your own learning. Make sure you've got some sort of technical skills, like maybe an advanced Excel course, something along those lines, or even the Jumpstart into SQL course itself may be a good start to show that you're keen to really learn SQL, to develop in that specific industry, and maybe you might be in the middle of another SQL course, perhaps a Microsoft accreditation or something like that. So make sure any course that you're currently doing or just about to undertake that may enhance your ability to get that role, get that on your CV and just put in progress on the sort of timeline for that. So that shows the potential employer that this person is committed to SQL work, to database work, and they're willing to train themselves up. So especially if you paid for a course, that tends to hold quite a bit more weight than a course which is free. So that's the key thing for an entry-level role, is balancing this experience versus potential. If you can show that employer that you've got what it takes to hit the ground running in that role and be be prepared to learn as much as you can, and if the employer thinks, well, it won't take much effort at all to train this person up, given their CV, what they've accomplished, what they have ongoing, their own personal training, then they'll be keen to bring you in for interview. Potential questions will be made for the interview, so the employer will be going through your CV now in a little bit more detail, and he'll be highlighting areas for question. So if something doesn't quite match up, if you've maybe told a little bit of a porcupine on your CV, for example, 99 times out of 100 he'll probably highlight that, and it'll be brought up within the interview. So as an employer goes through your CV, they will be creating questions to ask you if they take you forward for an interview. Now, another key thing that the employer will be assessing when they read your CV is if you're the right fit for the team that you're potentially going to be working in and the company itself. If you have the right ethos, if you're a team player, etc. They'll be looking for that, because by all means, if someone's got all the right skills and talents, if they're brought in and hired, they go through all the process, etc., and they're just not right, they don't fit in the team, they're not a team player, and they cause too many headaches, then that is a big problem for the employer, and they'll have to go through the disciplinary process, etc., etc. So sometimes if the employer detects that you won't really be a good fit for the company, or maybe you might not be a good team player, then your CV will probably end up in the bin. So that's another key thing that an employer will be looking for. Now, when it comes to your employment history, normally an employer will check that out in a lot of detail and look for any sort of red flags or warnings. And by that I mean if you do a lot of job hopping, so every 6 months you're changing jobs, that could be a potential issue. Now, it doesn't mean that if you've done that in the past that you can't then go forward for a decent job on a more permanent basis, but you'll need to be able to back that up. Why are you now looking for a permanent role, etc.? During an interview, an employer will be asking these questions, because if you think about it, why train someone up, go through the recruitment process if they're just going to leave in a few months' time anyway, especially with all the training involved that you'll be getting on the job initially to get you bedded into the team and the work itself. So that's one key thing that an employer will look for. Another one is if there's huge gaps in your employment history and you haven't filled those in with anything. That is a little bit of a concern, a little bit of worry, and if you do go forward for an interview, you'll more likely be asked why there are those gaps and what you did in between them. So that's just a very quick look at things from an employer's perspective. Remember, all he's got to work off is a few pages of a CV in front of him, and he's got to then use that to build up a picture of you and what you're capable of, what you've done in the past, and your potential for future employment, whether you can be trained up to do the job, or if you might even be a problem child and you won't be a good fit for the team and the company. So make sure your CV is 100% and you present yourself in the best light using that. So that's just a quick run through of things from an employer's perspective. Now, I've done loads and loads of interviews for potential SQL developers and non-database related roles as well. So there is a specific sort of formula that an employer will use when looking at the CV, and those are just a few things to take note of there. We've got another bonus for you coming up, the second one on the list. Until then, I'll leave you with this, and I wish you all have a fantastic day.